welcome back to yet another Buffalo Blue Jays pregame show as the Blue Jays get ready to host the New York Yankees, the cross-state rivals. And this is contentious here in Buffalo because a lot of the professional baseball fans in town are Yankees fans. And that makes sense, right, Jared?
It really doesn't to me. I've thought about this for years. Like my parents, for example, are Yankees fans. But if you want to take a look at the map here, you'll see that there's a lot of other baseball teams that are much closer to Buffalo than New York City. You've got Toronto, you have Pittsburgh, you have Cleveland, you have Detroit, you even have Baltimore. And yet, for some reason, people decide to be fans of the Yankees. Now, one thing that people might say is that, oh, it's state pride. But, Randy, I don't know about you, but every time I've been in New York City, I honestly can't believe I'm still in the same state. It's just a whole other universe in New York City. And the idea that, I realize we're in the same state, but the idea that it feels like it's home to me, it does not at all. And I feel bad for people who think that like the Yankees actually care about their fan base out in Buffalo, because they do not. They don't care at all, and it's aggravating to me. If you haven't gathered, I'm very anti-Yankees. I'm more anti-Yankees than I am anti-Red Sox, and we've already gone over that history with Buffalo. They're like the Patriots of baseball to me, but at the same time, they haven't been a dominant team like they were in the 20th century, have they?
No. When you and I grew up, they were the evil empire. They were just crushing everything that came in their path, and it was because they had such a huge payroll that no one else could even come close to competing with. The Yes Network was a great innovation by George Steinbrenner, and just brought in huge amounts of money, and they created a whole programming channel around the team, and it would generate an amount of money that no other team was even close to compete with. The league had, like New York had always, being a big market, had always had advantage of being able to spend more money. They bought Babe Ruth from the Red Sox famously. You know, the Joe DiMaggio era, he wasn't the only good player on those teams. Like they've always had the money to surround their star players with good talent. But in the 90s, the disproportionate nature of it, because of the Yes Network and all the money coming in, just blew it out of the water. The Red Sox ended up creating NESN to compete with it. The rest of the leagues caught up. The league started creating rules like with luxury taxes, where you start spending over a certain amount, you have to pay extra back, so it ended up costing the team more. And eventually, order was restored to the universe, and without that huge economic advantage, the Yankees have not had the management wherewithal to put together a championship team since, much to the,
To me,
the joy, much of the joy of many people, myself included. I was born in Arlington, Texas, and every time as a kid the Rangers made it into the playoffs, they were defeated in the first round by the Yankees, and it just seemed like an obstacle that we were never ever going to be able to get around.
Right. And before you go on real quick, I did want to mention, I understand, like just now from the fact that as you all know, I had to buy the MLB extra innings package in order to watch the Blue Jays games. If you're not, like, the only games that are on TV are the Yankees games and the Mets games because of the channel you just mentioned. So it's hard to root for any other team. I understand that part of it, where it's like, oh, if it's only Yankees games, of course you're going to watch the team that's on all the time. But
well, I think locally, the fact that New York is in the name, and we live in New York, and they're winners, I think that has a lot to do with it too, because as a sports fan in Buffalo, you haven't had a lot of chance to root for championship teams. And shortly after the Bills just finished ripping your hearts out 4 years in a row, you also have to be a Yankees fan, and they go on a string of 8 championships or whatever it was in the 90s. Like, I think that probably endeared themselves to a lot of Buffalo fans as well, that they could go root for a champion.
Well, then I hate to say it, but everybody's delusional, because New York City is not Buffalo, as we all know. We all should know that. And if you actually think the Yankees represent you, you are wrong.
I think you probably make the similar argument about the people of New York as well. But enough living in the past. This is a pregame show for the games that are upcoming. We have our pitching matchups for the Yankees. Ryu will be going against Montgomery in the first game. Walker versus Happ, and Roark versus Garcia, who hasn't seen a whole lot of action so far this season, at least in the starting role.
Right.
Any thoughts on the pitching matchups? Any matchup stands out to you as an advantage for Buffalo?
Oh well, Ryu. Oh my God, Ryu's been lights out. What's his ERA? Like 2 or 1?
2.51.
2.51. He's doing amazing every time he plays. I don't want to say it's a guaranteed win, but you're at least going to have 2/3 of the game where the other team's not doing much against you. Especially, I believe Aaron Judge has been out as well for the Yankees, so like they have less offense right now as it is. So I expect the first game to be a Blue Jays domination, and then that third game you mentioned, there's not a lot of experience with that pitcher, so we'll see how he does. Roark hasn't been doing that well, and Walker wants to play more. A lot of people believe that Walker actually, this is like a temporary thing for him. He's a free agent after the season, so he's probably going to go off, and probably he'll go back to the Mariners somehow again. And but yeah, he wants to pitch as long as possible. He has a similar pitching philosophy to me. Like, I want to see the pitchers stay in if they're doing well, but they want to take them out after like the 5th or whatever. And I can understand that frustration. So to answer your question, I think for 2 of the 3 games, the Blue Jays dominate in the pitching realm.
Very good. We haven't focused as much on the offensive side of the innings in the pregame show, perhaps to our detriment. But New York and Toronto tied for the exact 4.77 runs per game. They do have similar records, if we didn't mention that, but they have the same run per game. Toronto has a slight advantage in the batting average, but the Yankees have the advantage in the on-base percentage. So what do you think of the offensive matchup between the teams?
Well, if it's even, it's even, and I think that's basically where, it's funny, because of that, it almost cancels each other out, and you almost have to look at the pitching, but you can't just look at the pitching, you have to look at how the dugout's doing, and for the most part, even your strongest Yankee fan will tell you that they don't have that strong of a dugout, the Yankees, so it's kind of similar to the Red Sox, similar to the Phillies, where they might come out starting pretty well, but if you put in that wrong pitching rotation, the Blue Jays will take advantage of that with their offense. They have the Blue Jays have some good hitters that we have not been talking about on the show that we should be talking about. Vladimir Guerraro, he had like a 12 or 11 game hitting streak where each game he at least got 1 hit. Teoscar Hernandez, every time he's up, you feel like he's going to hit a home run. And then there's just been other players showing up. Gurriel's been the hero. Grichuk has been the hero. Tellez has been the hero sometimes. It's just, you take each player and it seems like almost all of them have had their day. So overall, I think they've been doing really well hitting. I think I missed part of what you're asking me about, but you're talking about the offenses.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think you nailed all the big points. So how do you see the Blue Jays faring? Or perhaps let me go first, because I wanted to bring up the fact that for having done years of pregame shows with you for the football side of things, I am very methodical in my predictions, and I have a system, and it works, and I'm kind of proud of it. But I am, with this baseball, I am strictly emotional, and I cannot see a way that we don't walk away with a sweep in this series. Chance of rain Monday night or Labor Day for Ryu. So if they do play, I'm gonna have us winning a low game 2-1. Walker versus Happ on Tuesday. The Blue Jays win 6-4, and then on Wednesday they round up the series sweep with a 10-6 victory. Jared, to you.
See, what's so crazy about that is I'm more emotional when it comes to my football picks, but I'm a lot more methodical when it comes to my baseball picks. So we are exactly the opposite when it comes to how we choose our picks for sports.
All right, let's hear it.
So I'm basically looking at the pitching matchups and using those to kind of drive where I'm going with this. And obviously I have to factor in the relievers a little bit. I'm going to say we win the first game 5-2, we win the second game 5-3, and then we lose the last game 5-3 as well. Yes, we're going to differentiate a little bit on this one. I would love to sweep the Yankees, don't get me wrong. But Roark's just not been doing that well this year, and that's my only concern there in that final game. And Garcia is kind of an unknown, so we'll see how he does against him.
When did I become the homer? Well, there's another series at home this week against the other New York team, the Metropolitans, and so we'll be back later this week to cover that. But thank you so much to all of our fans for tuning in. Subscribe, hit like, and we'll talk to you then. Oh, yes!